Okay, hole number one, Pronghorn Nicklaus. Really fun course. Probably a good balance for the average golfer of fair and really hard. Most of the fairways are really big. Most of the approach shots are very targety. The first hole is no exception. There's a huge waste area / driving range to the right, big fairway, just a simple bunker. It's a very forgiving opening hole, but as you will see, I hit a decent drive for my standards, hit a gap wedge to the middle of the green, and then basically ran into disaster by having a not so simple putt, albeit maybe I'm not the best putter, but I ran this by. I was surprised at how fast it went and ended up three putting. So that is kind of an example of how Pronghorn can just bite you. Hole number two, bad alignment. I feel like I'm coming steeper on my takeaway because I've been really trying to change my takeaway because I have a death move with my takeaway. Hit it into that rough. Got very lucky to not hit it into the pine straw. This is par 5. It's very strategic. I don't foresee myself ever being able to go for this 1 and 2 because of all the hazards, bunkers, trees, everything. Oh my. That was some mid-iron, then a gap wedge once again from a really crazy lie. And these green complexes are very long at the Nicklaus course. Love the green speed. And also, whenever I've played Pronghorn Nicklaus twice now, love the serenity and peace when on this property. Finished it up. I thought I was starting off bogey with 2-3 putts. The third hole I forgot was at elevation. It's 200. It's a punch bowl green, and I hit a hybrid well over the green. I think it's like a 180 number if I were to go back, because you just want to run it into that punch bowl. When you see that chip, you can kind of see the punch bowl. Go to my last vlog if you want to see that better, like explained. But fun hole, hard hole. The following hole, the fourth hole, is a drivable par 4, not for me because I drove it right into a strategically placed bunker right in line with where the green is. So if you're going to go for it, you got to carry that bunker, which is an element Mr. Nicklaus put in there to cause golfers issues and to not make it an easy hole. It's a very fun hole, and I think that as we see me make this putt, which the greens are perfect, it kind of complements what I like about Pronghorn so much. There's a lot of short par 4s, there's long par 4s, there's long par 3s, there's short par 3s. It just has a good variety of holes, although only a few really stand out. This was another example where I hit a good drive. I absolutely murdered this approach shot. I thought I was going to be within 5 feet, and I get up there and I bombed it way over, which that's altitude and wind, but it took me a little bit. This was my first round in Bend. I only documented one round, but it took me a bit to understand that there was actually a difference playing at altitude. Decent pitch, chip, knocked it in. Playing some decent golf here. Still, the swing is not what I'd like for a YouTube personality. Look at some of these vistas, though. This is a really long, I want to say like 420, 430 par 4, and I hit driver 9-iron, which by my standards never happens. This is the approach you're hitting into, so anything to the right funnels back to the left. It's a huge green that slopes. I hit a 9-iron. I feel like it landed right by the pin and ran all the way off the green, which was, I mean, you just have to accept it. It's also a blind shot, so I couldn't see it, which I'm getting to a point where I'm not the biggest fan of blind shots because it's like you hit and hope. But very happy to get the up and down. Gave you this artsy shot because I think this really sums up what makes the front 9 of Pronghorn so special. It kind of feels like a desert version of Spyglass's back 9, where a lot of people might not look at the golf architecture quirks and revel in its masterpiece per se. But I think it just has some really solid golf holes that maybe are outshined by like some of the more quote-unquote beautiful holes. But I think that really for me, I've grown fond of this opening stretch of Pronghorn just as much as the more famed holes. I really thought I was going to make a birdie in the coolest way possible on this, and I didn't, and that happens. This par 5 right here, Really, really tricky number 8. It's all about sight line, and there is water that comes into play. There are bunkers that come into play. There's some of the forced carries. I think I documented this better in my previous vlog. There's this really beautiful and scenic, like, river marsh area, and that just plays with the whole right-hand side. So if you have a big right miss, water is going to come into play. It forces strategic elements into your game where you have to play to numbers. And if you're going to go for the hero shot, you've got to really believe that you can hit it. Pretty much every par 5 at Pronghorn, there is no chance that I'm getting home in 2 if I'm playing what I think is the appropriate tees for myself. And I basically took a coward approach to this hole. Went as far left as possible both times to take water out of play. Hit a decent chip. I feel like I hit that a little heavy. And then I got lucky on this one because I pushed this putt, but it just stays up. Really, really strong hole. Now, the 9th hole, I played through a group. They were nice enough. This is one of the weaker holes at Pronghorn. It's just a really, really long par 4. Didn't document. There's a bunker that I had to go over, so you had to pick your poison. If you could carry that bunker, you give yourself a wedge in your hand. It was all downwind, and then the back of the green has a Pinehurst green. Once again, I hit on the green. Hard bounce downwind, hits this Pinehurst turtleback green. And for where I'm at currently, this is not a moment in my life where I love the uphill into the wind, kind of double false front shot. My skill set, I'm not thinking, man, let me get as close as possible. I'm kind of thinking, how do I save bogey? So got up and down, or up and 2, made bogey, which I felt like was the number I was expected. Number 10 is kind of the hole before we get going with like the special holes of Pronghorn. So that was the mega pull. And then once again, I've got this hybrid in my bag, hit the hybrid, just came up a tiny bit short. I was going into the wind. It was the right number. It just didn't have that piercing ball flight. And once again, we have this Pinehurst false front inspired greens. And I hit this chip so well, and it lipped out, and it almost went in. That was my only birdie look of the day that really had a chance. 11 is probably the start of the really special stretch at Pronghorn. So there's this big figure 8 bunker in the middle of the fairway that you're forced to make a decision. Do you want to stay left of it, or do you want to go for it? And that's what I chose to do, but I hit into the bunker. Then I had kind of a tricky pitch that I've fallen in love with, hitting these high lofted clubs when I probably should have ran that one back there, and hit a decent putt, but it wasn't the greatest, didn't go in. 12, it's a, in theory, drivable par 4, but there's really no path to get it on the green unless you have a really high flighted ball flight. Looks spectacular. To the left is kind of your ideal target zone. There's a bunch of trees and there's a bunker. It's slightly uphill. Hit a good drive, basically the position I wanted to be in, which was super lucky because I thought I might have lost my ball because it was completely blind. And then this was really disappointing, but whatever. I had a good look at birdie, and I just completely pushed the putt, which you got to do better, but we're working on the attitude thing. So mega pull, this is the signature hole. Just as you can see, just phenomenal look at this island green with waters all around it. Just kind of a coward's play on this. Just super left, and then I stayed left once again with a little bit more club gap wedge just to make sure the water was not in play. Got lucky it didn't go in the bunker because I probably was not capable of hitting that shot without going into the water, and got lucky to get up and down from there. I've always had a special affinity for this par 3 at Pronghorn because it really sandwiches a nice, gentle, anywhere from an 8-iron, 7-iron to pitching wedge, depending on the tees, to kind of one of the more wide-open greens. There is sand and some hazard around, but really this is one of the more manageable shots. And it kind of feels like what makes this stretch so special is you have a tricky hole, then a forgiving hole, then a tricky hole, then a forgiving hole. And that leads into this par 5 that kind of figure 8s. Hit the super left ball that I thought was going to be absolutely perfect and murdered. It actually probably wasn't. As you can see, it rides like a snake up kind of like this hill. Hit that ball out, so this is my third shot. thought this might be out, but it actually took an aggressive line over these trees and gave me an approach at the green from right here. As you get closer to the green, there's obstructions that block your view. It's kind of like Troon Monument, and there's a closer look of it. So you just have to play around it. Old Greenwood also had elements of that as well. So once again, this is my 5th shot, so playing for par, and was able to walk away with a bogey with a lost ball, unless that's an out of bounds. But I'm not like ever going to be a great golfer where I'm going to value the rules of golf over pace of play. If you go back, you can see what the hole looks like. It's really epic. This is probably the most gettable hole on the backside, hole 16. It's really a tremendous hole. It's one of the best holes on the course. And whoops, hit a decent drive. Okay, and I'm like, I don't want to hit the pink ball I found. So now I'm hitting, what is this? So 1, 2, this is 4. So I'm, instead of just looking for that, we're just going to take our penalty from right there. And I absolutely butchered that. I thought that was going to be like right at the pin. Once again, Mr. Nicklaus got me with his precise pin. That is my par shot. Not the greatest bunker play, but I'm not the greatest bunker player. I'm just happy to get it out. And then if you ever want to see how confusing golf is, talk about a mix of emotions. Hitting one of the worst shanks I can hit and then making like an 80-footer. That is golf in a nutshell. 17, tricky par 3. The green goes right to left. There's a bunch of bunkers. Also, probably one of the greatest holes if you want to find lost golf balls. If you're a walker, which I walked this, if you walk through the shrubbery here, there's like 10 to 20 golf balls just hanging out because it seems like people get discouraged and then they're over it. 2 putted made par. That's a really hard hole. 18 runs parallel to the signature hole. It has the waterfall. It also has this ghost tree that you can kind of see my back and the ghost tree going. I don't know if I got tired or if I'm just not talented or what's wrong, but this end had some really sad stuff, and that was just a really heavy ball followed by kind of a swing I just gave up on and just sweeped at the ball and really limped home. I was really excited because this is a long par 4. I thought I gave myself a good number and a good chance, and yeah. But anyways, I really appreciate anybody that supports the channel. Please subscribe, and I'm going to try my best to give you guys more content. I really am.